Despite being built by one of the biggest car companies in the world, the Toyota Origin remains one of the most mysterious cars ever produced. Not just because they only made about 1,000 of them, and not because they were only sold in Japan, but because 25 years after it was introduced, there's remarkably little primary source material about the car online. And because there's so little original information out there, you also find a lot of things that aren't actually true. So I found an unopened Toyota Origin dealer brochure in Japan, spent over $100 to buy it. Look at this thing. Dark green textured hardcover, beautiful fold-out photography, some quadruple trucks in there, glossy pages, information I've never seen presented before on an English language YouTube video. So legit, even came with the original sell sheet for the dealer showing the invoice price and how Toyota planned to allocate them to dealerships. And on top of that, I ran deep research through Japanese language sources only using 2 different AI models, and then I had each model independently audit the other's work, and we threw out anything that couldn't actually be verified. And I also bought the car this past February for research purposes. As a result, I think this is going to be the most well-researched English language video to date on Toyota's most mysterious car. Today, we're going to separate fact from fiction, but more importantly, we're going to answer 2 questions. Why was this car built? And how did Toyota pull it off? The main reason the Origin was made, you'll see this everywhere online, and it's absolutely correct for the most part. Toyota built the Origin to commemorate the 100 millionth vehicle that it had produced. That's not a myth.
オリジンです。
ルーツとかで、どういういきさつで出たかっていうと、トヨタの国内累計生産台数、これを1億台を記念して作られた車なんですよ。
Toyota formally announced the production car in July 2000, sales beginning November. But this wasn't Toyota just waking up one morning saying, holy shit, guys, we just built 100 million cars. We got to do something. They knew this day was coming years in advance, and they started planning the Origin so it would be ready when that 100 millionth car rolled off the line, dead serious. But that's not the whole story either. According to the sales brochure, the Origin was also created to preserve what Toyota called a mother technology, foundational car building skills by human beings. Toyota wanted to preserve, pass on to the next generation of craftsmen so they wouldn't die off. Those skills were still being practiced at Kanto Auto Works, where Toyota's master craftsmen and their apprentices hand-built the Toyota Century. These aren't robots building Camrys. These are artisans trusted to hand-build the cars used by Japanese prime ministers, dignitaries, even the imperial household of Japan. The Origin gave Toyota a reason to put those skills to work and to pass it on before they disappeared forever. And this all happened right around the turn of the millennium, the year 2000. It was a wild time, guys, if you were there. Half the world was waiting for the Y2K bug to crash the global power grid or the stock market, but the automotive world was looking backward. Retro styling having a massive moment. Volkswagen brought back the Beetle. Jaguar resurrected the S-Type. Ford revived the Thunderbird. All of those aged pretty well. Other attempts, not so much. The PT Cruiser, the Plymouth Prowler. Building a retro car is harder than it looks. It's a very fine line between timeless and looking like Grandpappy's hot rod had sex with your neighbor's mom's Pacifica. And just a few years before, Toyota had already fumbled the bag once with the totally Akko 1996 Toyota Classic. They knew they couldn't afford another clown car on this auspicious occasion. To justify a 7 million yen price tag, about 125 grand today, this new car had to be absolutely exquisite. Toyota had the vision, but they needed 2 things. They needed an inspiration for the design and a big baller to pull it all off. they got both. Toyota put Tsutomu Shimizu in charge of the project. I know you've probably never heard of him, but if you've been watching Jimports, you've definitely seen his work. Only a few years earlier, Shimizu-san had worked on the second generation Toyota Century, which I featured here on Jimports after I imported one for my dad at the beginning of this summer. The Century, Toyota's flagship luxury sedan, the most luxurious car they make, one of the coolest cars ever, the vehicle used by CEOs, members of the imperial household. The second generation Century was such a timeless design that it remained in production for 20 years, virtually unchanged from '97 until 2017. It was also built at the same Kanto factory where the Origin would be made, using the same masters of the craft. This guy knew timeless design. This guy knew the factory. This guy knew Toyota. He was perfect for the job. Job still wasn't going to be easy. One wrong line, one oversized fender, and you've got a car that looks like that smart-ass taxi cab from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Toyota didn't want a novelty like the comical Toyota Classic from '96. They wanted a genuinely good, drivable, modern luxury car that paid respect to the past without looking cartoonish. Fortunately, they had the perfect inspiration, the first generation Toyota Crown from 1955. When you put the Crown and the Origin next to each other, you see exactly how the design team carried the old car forward without copying it. The grille, the round headlights, the ridge running down the hood, the curved rear glass, the vertical taillights, the geometry of the fenders, the suicide doors, all drawn from the original Crown. Toyota didn't have to start from scratch mechanically either. They borrowed from another compact luxury car, but this is something people frequently get wrong when they talk about the Origin. Some people say that the Origin's just a Toyota Progrès in a different skin. To be fair, half true. The Progrès was a short-lived, weird-looking compact luxury sedan built from 1998 to 2007. I've only ever seen one on the highway outside Tokyo, and I didn't even know what it was the first time I saw it. While it was a bit of an odd duck, the Progrès was known for being a great driver with solid mechanicals. Toyota used its platform in many of its major components, including the same wheelbase, rear-wheel drive layout, double wishbone suspension, and 4-speed automatic transmission as the foundation for the Origin, mechanically speaking. This wasn't only about saving money, it also meant Origin owners wouldn't have to chase down proprietary mechanical parts every single time the car needed some sort of repair. Owners, mechanics, Toyota's accountants, all appreciated this. Toyota had a stable of great engines to choose from. They went with one of the best, the naturally aspirated 3-liter 2JZ-GE, producing about 212 horsepower, the same engine found in naturally aspirated versions of the legendary Toyota Supra. Toyota chose it for strong low mid-range torque, quiet operation, smooth power delivery rather than speed. Coupled with the Progrès 4-speed automatic, it gave the Origin respectable power without the transmission constantly shifting up and down, disturbing the driver or the passenger. Plus, it's one of Toyota's most reliable engines. But the Origin's not just a rebadged Progrès like everyone says. The Origin, a little longer, a little wider, a little taller than the Progrès, keeping the same wheelbase. Part of the reason for this, those rear hinge suicide doors, which became one of the biggest challenges on the project. Funny enough, after my first Origin video, I had a comment or two asking me to not call them suicide doors. I need to apologize for my insensitivity to anyone who had a family member thrown out of a rear hinge door by a 1930s bootlegger with a name like Buster or Sally Skidmarks. I'm sorry. They call them suicide doors. I didn't make the name up. What are you gonna do? The Progrès already has ordinary front hinge doors, so Toyota could have saved a lot of time, effort, money by just leaving it alone, using the Progrès chassis as is. Instead, the Origin team recreated the Crown's suicide doors because they were one of the strongest connections to the design of the original car. And it was the right decision, but man, they were a task. The Origin brochure says Craftsman visually inspected the gaps between the front and rear doors. They positioned the center pillar trim to match by hand. The body was completely unique. Some of the shapes were too complicated for ordinary mass production stamping. Incredibly, Toyota formed these rear quarter panels in 5 separate pieces before they were assembled, while the front fenders and the front end sections were separately pressed and joined by Craftsman in a visually seamless surface. And that's why the Kanto Craftsmen were essential to making the Origin. The brochure specifically says that the curved rear glass required repeated trial and error to develop and install. The front end assembly, the panel gaps, all had to be visually inspected and manually aligned by the Century masters personally. Then there was the paint. Toyota painted the body. They wet sanded the entire car by hand with waterproof paper, painted it again, repeated the process until the surface was nearly flawless. This is all in the brochure. Toyota said that the finish was similar to traditional Japanese urushi lacquerware. This was the mother technology Toyota was talking about. The Origin gave master craftsmen a reason to use the skills they spent their whole lives cultivating while their apprentices learned these skills on the job. Part of the Origin story isn't just about preserving Toyota's history, it's about preserving the talents of its artists who were being rendered obsolete by robots. But for all the old world craftsmanship, the classical design, the Origin wasn't old-fashioned underneath. It had a flip-up 7-inch display with DVD-based voice navigation, live traffic information, radar cruise control, which wasn't even an option on my 2019 4Runner, neural network climate control that factored in the outside temperature, sunlight, and cabin temperature before adjusting itself. It had a 6-disc optional mini disc changer alongside the usual cassette and CD. I burned the shit out of some mini discs in high school and college. They were really like the first genuinely portable, recordable, digital music MP3 format. At the time, they felt like the future. Carry a stack of albums and something smaller than a pack of cigarettes. It was really cool. I was back in the kitchen listening to ska and emo as a confused young man whenever I was working at McGuire's in Pensacola, Florida. The wildest bit of tech, and I'm not sure you're ready for this one. The Origin had something called cooperative navigation shift control, all about being comfortable, not being loud. Very Japanese. The GPS and the transmission, they talk to each other. The navigation system would read the car's position, the shape of the road ahead, then adjust the transmission shift strategy in real time, avoiding unnecessary upshifts, delivering the right amount of driving force or engine braking before you even knew you needed it. Cresting a hill, the car already knew. Approaching a curve, transmission had already decided what it was going to do about it. This is a genuinely bizarre piece of engineering to bury inside a car that looks like it belongs in You Only Live Twice, and it's the clearest proof we have that the Origin wasn't just a nostalgia piece with a body kit. It was Toyota flexing, trying to make a really cool high-tech luxury car that was functional too. I think now's a good time where we clear up the production number, model year confusion. Some people believe that only 1,000 cars were made, that they were all produced in the year 2000. Not correct. This one behind me is a 2001. Toyota's public materials said that they plan to sell approximately 1,000 cars. The dealer sell sheet that I got says that it's 1,000 cars exactly. But the Kanto factory's records say that production ran from May 2000 through April 2001 with a cumulative total of 1,073 cars. My dealer sell sheet says customer production would run from November through April and specifically warned that delivery timing would not be guaranteed. Toyota's surviving public records don't explain the discrepancy, why it was 1,073 instead of 1,000, whether those additional 73 cars were ordinary cars, prototypes, press cars, demonstration vehicles, or something totally different. Choices were limited. Every Origin came with ivory interior. There were only 3 exterior colors: black, a navy blue called blue mica, and a gray blue that Toyota literally called light grayish blue mica metallic molybdenum. In the brochure, Toyota said the wood used for the interior trim was carefully selected, and it specifically calls attention to the stitching on both the leather seats and the leather-wrapped center console. The seat backs all have gold embroidered Origin logos. Toyota even put wood trim on the turn signal and wiper stalks. We'll talk about my opinions on the interior quality in the next video when I actually review the car. So why did Toyota really build this thing? The 100 millionth car gave them an excuse, but the real story is about a factory full of craftsmen whose skills were about to become obsolete, and one very expensive, very unnecessary project that gave them a reason to keep using those skills. That's the part that almost no one talks about online. The Origin wasn't a novelty. It wasn't a reskinned Progrès. It wasn't a cash grab. It was a genuine tribute built by people who knew exactly what they wanted to preserve. Now, I own one. And in the next video, I'm going to tell you whether it's actually good, whether it's worth buying, what it's like to live with and drive a 25-year-old hand-built Toyota, and whether any of this justifies the price tag of $125,000 adjusted for inflation whenever it came out. Thank you so much for watching Jimports. Please subscribe. Take care.